Welcome to the Virtual College Exploration for all Pennsylvania students, sponsored by the Pennsylvania Association for College Admission Counseling and StriveScan. PACAC is a nonprofit association comprised of more than 1,200 school counselors, college admission counselors, independent educational consultants, and other professionals responsible for guiding students through the important transition from high school to post-secondary options. Thank you for joining us. A few housekeeping items before we get started. You can use the Q&A button on your screen to type your questions to our presenter at any time. And your camera and microphone are off, so the panelist cannot see or hear you. This is just one of many different sessions happening, so be sure to check out the full schedule at pacac.org. This presentation is being recorded and will be available within about a week at that same website, pacac.org. I'd like to now turn it over to our presenter.
Awesome, thank you, Mary. So great to have all of you here. I'm gonna work on sharing my screen here, so bear with me for one moment. Perfect, you should be able to see that now. Just by way of brief introduction, my name is Shayna. I'm one of the Associate Directors for Admissions at Messiah University. We are located in South Central PA, so if you look kind of right between Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, we're a little bit closer to the Philadelphia side, kind of in the southern tier of Pennsylvania, about an hour or so north of Maryland. So I'm super glad you guys are here to join us. I am originally from New York, so if I talk too fast or anything like that, I'll do my best to slow down, but we have a lot of great information to cover, so I'm gonna jump right in. Like our Mary said, definitely please start asking questions now if you have them. I'll keep an eye on them as we go, so if I can work them in as we go, great. Otherwise, I will definitely leave about 5 or 10 minutes at the end to answer as many questions as I can, and of course, anything I don't get back to you via email, that sort of thing. So we'll just get started here with some of the basics of Messiah. I always like to start with our mission statement. It's not something that a lot of students ask me about or specifically say, what is your mission statement? But I think, especially for any of you that are starting to go through the actual college search and identifying schools that are a good fit, a mission statement is a great way to just get a feel for, if I had a life mission statement for myself, does this school's approach to the educational process fit what I would want? So our mission statement is right there. It says our mission is to educate men and women toward maturity of intellect, character, and Christian faith in preparation for lives of service, leadership, and reconciliation in church and society. Now, of course, that's a lot of words, and I don't expect you to remember all of those. It's totally fine. I was a marketing major at Messiah. I graduated in 2014, and so we have great little marketing things called taglines that help us remember that. Sharpening intellect, deepening Christian faith, and inspiring action. Sharpening intellect comes from the fact that we are an educational institution. Our first and foremost goal, of course, is to educate you in the field that you're hoping to pursue once you graduate high school. You've already identified college as a next step, so we want to make sure that we help you with that. What sets Messiah apart from other schools that have a very similar starting mission statement is that we really encourage and want our students to integrate their faith into the classroom. So we are a Christian institution, and we do have lots of opportunities like Bible studies and chapel on campus. But the distinctive is that we also bring the faith into the classrooms in the conversations to help you understand how does it look to be a biology major and a Christian, and how can I be a really great biologist or a nurse or an engineer or a teacher because I'm a Christian, not in spite of being a Christian. And so that's where the third part of our tagline comes from, inspiring action, in that we want you to get really excited about your future, really excited to be able to see how those things blend, and excited to be able to graduate from college and go pursue that. That's kind of our philosophical high-level overview of Messiah, and one that often people don't ask for, but I think kind of frames the conversation well. This slide highlights a few facts and figures as well. So Messiah has about 2,700 students. Out of those 2,700 students, about 2,200 live on campus. So we have a lot of students from Pennsylvania, of course, but we have students from 28 different countries and 38 different states. And so the ability to live on campus, of course, is really important to them. And it makes for a great campus community. There's a lot to do in the evenings and in the afternoons, weekends. It's never quiet on campus, even in these days of COVID. So moving forward, just again, a little bit about our location. So like I said, South Central PA, a little bit closer to Philly than we are to Pittsburgh, of course. If you've ever been to Hershey or Hershey Park, we're only about 30 minutes from Hershey. If you are a Pennsylvania resident, of course, you know Harrisburg is the capital of PA, and we're only about 15 minutes from the city. But if you're more of a big city girl, I grew up just outside of New York City. We are really close to a lot of the major cities in the mid-Atlantic region. Baltimore's only about 90 minutes. Philly is about 2 hours. DC is an hour and a half. And of course, my city, New York, is only about 3 hours. I know I mentioned sharpening intellect earlier. These are a few things that kind of back that up. You don't have to just take my word for it. Of course, that Messiah is a really great academic institution. We're consistently ranked in the top 20 schools for best regional university by US News and World Report. I think that's a really cool ranking because it's private and public schools, all different types of schools all together. It's not just private or just Christian or a certain size, it's everybody all together. Moving forward, this is a little bit about academics. So Messiah has 85 different majors, excuse me. Messiah has about 85 different majors. The top majors by enrollment would be engineering, nursing, business, education, and applied health sciences biology. So really that last one is just anything you want to study in the health sciences, of course, we're well prepared to help you with. But we do have 4 different schools, one of which is a School of the Arts, School of the Humanities, School of Business, Education, Social Sciences, Science, Engineering, and Health. It's a lot of different words. It just means Messiah is a liberal arts school. So we're able to help you with all your different interests. Just earlier, I was meeting with a girl who is a really talented writer and artist, but she really wants to study biochemistry. And so we were talking through how she can kind of take some of these skills that she has and like talents, but also where her passions are and put them together in different ways. And so you'll see throughout the presentation, we'll have some of these ligatures, we call them. And it's 2 words that are next to each other that are seemingly opposite ideas that Messiah works really hard to be able to bring together. So often there's this idea that if you're in a discipline major like engineering, it's very numbers, it's very facts, there's no imagination. And if you're in an art major and there's lots of imagination and creativity, there's not really a discipline within that. And we think that every major has a combination of the 2, and that's what makes you even stronger. And so that's why we focus on that within the liberal arts. Our average class size is about 20 students, so it's going to be pretty normal to what you experience in high school for most of you. 12 to 1 student to faculty ratio, 200 full-time faculty, 85% hold a terminal degree. I will mention terminal degree just means the highest degree in their field. I know not every student knows what that means. As we go, you'll see some of these Messiah Respond boxes, so I just want to briefly highlight that. It's talking about how Messiah has responded to the COVID-19 pandemic and how we've been able to adapt for students. Super excited to say we are on campus in person. So students are able to have the option to learn in the classroom with their professor, or they are able to remote in as well. So we wanted to be able to serve our student population as best we could. Like I mentioned, we have about 2,700 students. Of those 2,700 students, only 100 of them opted to do remote work. A lot of students were really excited for the opportunity to come back to campus and live in community together. So of course it looks different than before, but that opportunity has just been really strong and a really positive one. All right, so then the next slide, if we move forward. All right, study abroad. So this is a map of all the different countries that Messiah students can study at. I know that study abroad is not something that every student wants to do, but it is definitely something that Messiah makes really easy and encourages students to do if they do have an interest in it. There are 3 different types of study abroad that you can do. One is a traditional semester abroad, which is going to be pretty similar to what you think of when you think of semester abroad. It's 3 or 4 months in another country, you enroll in another university, you take 12 to 18 credits, you bring those back here, it's one of your 8 semesters of college. The cool thing about our semester abroad is that your financial aid goes with you. So however much it costs for you to be on campus here in Pennsylvania with us will be pretty much the same exact amount for you to be able to study in Australia or in Zimbabwe or in Italy, just depending on your program. Some programs have a certain like major slant to them, and then a lot of them offer general education credits. So you can really choose anywhere that you want to go and it will still apply toward your major. The second kind of trip, if you're not keen on maybe 3 months of going to another country, or if you love that so much that one time isn't enough, we do have something called a cross-cultural. Those are a little bit unique to Messiah. They're a 3-week trip rather than a 3-month trip. And you get to do that with a Messiah faculty member, with all Messiah students. You meet them ahead of time, gives you a little bit more comfort about the experience. And then we take all the fun cultural things of a semester and cram it all into 3 weeks. So it's definitely a busy 3 weeks. but you still get academic credit for it. It does not count with your financial aid. However, all of those trips that are less than $5,000, all inclusive, which means it includes your plane flights, your activities, the food you eat, where you stay, literally everything you're doing, which is awesome. I personally went to Mexico for January for 3 weeks, and it was amazing, and it only cost $2,400, so it was a great experience. The third kind you can do is a service trip. So it doesn't count for academic credit, but again, if you have a real passion for service, for missionary work, we can do anywhere from 1 or 2 days locally here in Harrisburg, or a weekly opportunity, all the way to 3 or 4 weeks over the summer in another country, just depending where your interests lie. So this is a little bit about Messiah's Career and Professional Development Center. So with this, a lot of career centers at a lot of schools are very similar. They're going to offer a lot of similar services. So anything you've heard about one school probably also pertains to Messiah. But there's 3 things that I like to highlight about Messiah that's a little bit different. One is our Explore You program. And that program is for students who are coming into college and they're not sure what they want to do. Traditionally an undeclared student or an undecided student. We have a lot of students also who come in and they're like, I'm going to do this. And then they do it for 2 weeks and they're like, this is not what I thought it was at all. And now I feel like I'm really lost. So Explore You kind of gives you the opportunity to work with our Career Center, to do some strengths finding, to do some spiritual gift testing, to be able to do personality testing and help you find what areas you'd be strong at. It doesn't necessarily say, boom, you should be a nurse, but say you would do really well in a helping profession or a profession that's going to be really technical, and then give you ideas within that. They do a lot of job shadowing. A little different from interning, where you actually get to see what it is that people do all day long, rather than just one small part of the job for a few weeks. The second thing I like to highlight is something called Into the City. And Into the City is a program that our Career Center does where we take students from all different backgrounds to different cities throughout the East Coast and Midwest to be able to either, 1, network, because they might be from some of those cities or near those cities, but 2, to be able to make connections with alumni, parents of alumni, current students, family members, that sort of thing, to be able to start to build a network. So even if you don't think, oh, I don't really want to work in Boston, we went and visited the Boston Globe. That's a great opportunity if you're thinking you want to do something in journalism to make a good connection, maybe a future internship, even if you don't want to live there in the future. The third thing I like to highlight is something called ELI, or the Experiential Learning Initiative. We nicknamed it because nobody wants to say ELI 1,200 times in a day, or Experiential Learning Initiative 300 times in a day. ELI is a lot easier. And so ELI is the graduation requirement to do something outside of the classroom. So I often do kind of a little role play here when I'm meeting with a student, but if you're deciding between student A, who has a 4.0, is a great student, you want them on your trivia team for extra points in the classroom, all that sort of thing, and then student B, who has a 3.3, which is still, I want to say, a great GPA, definitely something you want to shoot for in college. And they've done Into the City, and they've done 2 different internships, and they've gotten a little bit of research under their belt. As an employer, pretty much every time you're going to choose student B, because you want somebody who's going to be able to hit the ground running and understand what it is your company is trying to do. And so that's our goal with ELI, is that every student has an experience outside of the classroom that makes them really marketable upon graduation. There's a lot of different ways you can fulfill it. I was a marketing student, so an internship, of course, made the most sense for me. But if you're thinking, I want to go pre-med, you can't really intern as a doctor before you're a doctor. So doing like undergraduate research can be really helpful in kind of padding your resume for when you do those graduate and medical school interviews. Messiah, of course, takes it a step further, where you work with a mentor who helps you kind of understand what it is that you've learned through the experience. They do mock interviews with you, they update your resume. If you worked on a project or a deliverable that you need to have ready for an interview, they kind of make sure that's all up to par, and just kind of do some of that baseline, helping you get ready for post-graduation life. Keeping an eye on questions, so don't forget, if you want to pop a question in there, I will definitely be taking those. This is a little bit about student life. So like I mentioned earlier, Messiah has about 2,200 students who live on campus all 4 years. The reason for that is we have kind of tiered housing. So we first have first-year student housing, which is all of our first-year students living in one of 3 rooms, or dorms, not rooms, that would be a lot of you in one room, but 3 dorms that kind of create a really strong community within them. A lot of you are going through the same things if you're local to Messiah, or if you're 300, 400, 700 miles away from home. We know that homesickness is real for all of you. And so putting you all together in the same dorms creates a lot of experiences that you can share, experiences that you can support each other with. If you're having a good day and your roommate's struggling a little bit, you can be there for them because you may have felt that way a week earlier. It's also a great way to make friends and be able to connect. You're not like mixed in with juniors and seniors who have established friend groups and aren't looking to make friends with first years. You know, everybody there is looking for that same social connection. And then as you move up, we have on-campus upperclassmen residence halls and then on-campus apartments. So by the time you're a junior and a senior, you have a lot more freedom. You have your own bathroom, kitchen, living room that you get to clean yourself. We won't do it for you anymore. So part of that adulting and starting to learn a little bit. Definitely check out the hashtag Messiah Dorms. We feature different student dorms on campus so you can kind of get an idea of what they're like. Obviously, we are doing campus visits right now, but we can't put you in the residence halls, so that's a great way to kind of So this is a little bit more about student life, all the different clubs and organizations, and hopefully this works. If not, we can find out, but I'm gonna try and show you a video just to give you a better idea of what student life is like rather than me just talking about it. Like to kind of share a little bit that way. Obviously, I do want to put a disclaimer that, of course, that was pre-COVID, but all of those things were actual students, actual activities that were happening on campus. And student life can really vary. It can be as simple as, you know, sharing popcorn and watching a movie with your friends in your residence hall, which is a big perk of having a really residential campus, is that there's always something like that to do. To things that we even do off campus, like the Sports Emporium. Like I said, we're only about 30 minutes from Hershey and there's great student discounts, things like that. There are lots of clubs and activities, of course, on campus that we encourage students to take advantage of, just because it's a great way to supplement your educational experiences. We meet a lot of students who are super ambitious and they want to like double major and minor and study abroad and be on a sports team. Not that you can't do a lot of that, but sometimes it can be a little overwhelming. And so clubs are a great way to have a low commitment but like a really high return on the amount of time that you spend. So this is a little bit about athletics. My precursor, of course, is right here. GoMessiah.com/be-recruited if you want to play for any of our varsity NCAA Division III teams. It is a recruitment process. I know sometimes there's some ideas around if it's Division III, you can do tryouts or walk on. Most of our teams do actually recruit. You do have to talk to a coach. We have some great teams. We have 31 national championships, which are NCAA Division III national championships. Our soccer teams tend to be really, really good. The most recent national championship we got was last fall. Our women's soccer team won, which is pretty cool. The men, of course, made the finals, but didn't actually win that year. So better luck next year, guys. Besides our varsity teams, we do have club teams. So that is kind of an in-between where you do get to try out for those teams. You practice 3 or 4 times a week. You do tournaments on the weekend. So it's a great way to still have a team environment, still get to be really competitive, but you don't have to do the same type of commitment that a varsity team is. Not every sport has that, but a lot of them do. And then the last is just rec athletics. So if you and your friends want to get together, make a team, it's a great way to stay fit, stay healthy, hang out, but also be really competitive. We have a really large base of athletes and people who are really into health and activity on campus. But similarly, we also have a really large constituent of students that are into theater and the arts and music, and both of those have great opportunities. If you don't really identify with either group, totally fine, because you're basically me then. I wasn't super into either of those, and I still had a great experience on campus. This slide is a little bit then, of course, about spiritual life. So of course, we mentioned that Messiah is a Christian institution, and our biggest goal is to incorporate faith into the classroom. But we also know that there's great opportunities that come with being able to engage with your faith in a more formal setting. So we do have chapel. You can read about those options right there, Tuesday morning, Tuesday night, and Thursday morning. You never have to choose between going to class or going to chapel, since there are no classes at the same time that chapel is. We have about 60 different denominations on campus, so we recognize that the same chapel for everyone isn't going to work all the time. So we have about 14 chapels that you're required to go to, but there's 50 that you can choose from. So we really want you to be able to go and choose for something that's most interesting to you, that you're going to want to be engaged in, and be in a group of students who are engaged in that as well. Not just because we told them, hey, you have to be at chapel. Besides chapel, we also have lots of service opportunities. We have an Agape Center, which is our Center for Service Learning on campus, which just gives students a lot of opportunities to be able to take what you're learning in the classroom and apply it to real world service. Obviously, like I said, we're really close to Harrisburg, so there's a lot of opportunities to serve in that community, but we also have international opportunities as well as other domestic larger city opportunities. All right, so a little bit more technical here as we get towards the end, so keep throwing those questions in. I see a few popping up, which is great. One is, of course, financial aid. So we've talked through all the value of Messiah, and now it's figuring out, well, how much does all of this cost? The first thing I would like to point out is right over there on the right-hand side, and that's that 100% of students receive financial aid. What that means is if you apply to Messiah and you do get accepted, you will receive a scholarship. The amount of that scholarship is going to be based on you. It's a merit scholarship. So we're not looking at anything else except who you are as a person and as a student. What's your GPA? If you're applying as a test score submitter, which I'll talk about in a second, what type of test scores do you have? What types of classes have you taken? What leadership opportunities have you taken up on? What service opportunities? And we've kind of put all that together. Most of our students then receive that Provost Scholarship, which is that first scholarship there, is a 4-year scholarship, which means you receive that and you retain it all 4 years. Beyond that, we do have some additional merit-based scholarships. One are our honors scholarships. So students who qualify for the honors program are invited to come and interview and could potentially earn anywhere from an additional $1,000 to a full tuition award. One thing I do want to mention with our honors program is that you do have to submit test scores to be eligible for it. All the rest of scholarships I'm going to talk about, you do not need to submit test scores for it. You don't need to submit test scores for the Provost Scholarship, only those honor scholarships that we need test scores for. Then we have our multicultural scholarships and our RH Flowers Scholarship. I really like that one. It's named after Rachel Helen Flowers, who's the first African-American student here at Messiah. And so those are for our students of underrepresented backgrounds, or for students who are just generally interested in issues related to race and racial reconciliation. And then we have School of the Arts and Humanities scholarships. I want to note with those are first-year scholarships that you get to carry all 4 years. Every other department on campus also has scholarships like that. They just choose to reserve them for students that are already in the major making a difference. So don't be afraid if you're a business student or engineering that you won't have that opportunity. You will. It'll just come a little bit later on. All of that being said, once you do your merit scholarship, you'll do your need-based scholarship. So we all know the FAFSA just became available yesterday. So you will apply for the FAFSA starting yesterday through the rest of the year. The government will come back and say roughly how much your family can afford to pay. Don't worry, we know that number is not always accurate. It's just a starting point for us to be able to award you additional need-based grants from Messiah. Once you receive all your merit scholarship and all your need-based aid, which is typically loans, work study, and grant opportunities, most students get about $27,000 in financial aid, which means you pay about $20,000 a year to come to Messiah. I know there's often a lot of questions about financial aid, so feel free to throw those and I will definitely come back with them. This is just a little bit about what's new at Messiah. So hopefully a lot of you know, of course, that Messiah was previously Messiah College. We just switched over to Messiah University. There is not any huge fundamental difference as to why we did that, and does it impact student life or anything like that. It's all pretty much exactly the same. We know that in the general public, there's a stigma with college versus university sometimes, and it just seemed like a great opportunity to be able to give you guys a little bit of a leg up to have that university title. Look at colleges, look at universities, they're all going to give you a lot of the same opportunities. This is just some renderings of our future welcome building on campus. It's getting finished up this month. So if you want to come visit campus next month, or maybe more in after Christmas, that will be what you get to welcome you to campus. The cool thing I like is that rendering where we actually took a parking lot that was in the middle of campus and we've now turned it into a campus green, which is really cool space for students to be able to utilize. All right, so this part is about visiting and applying, and then I will do some questions for a while, of course. So Messiah's application is available now. It will be available today, which is October 2nd, for those of you that are watching the recording, until November 15th. After November 15th, you are still more than welcome to apply to Messiah. However, it will cost you $50. So you can spend a small fortune just applying to colleges for them to tell you whether or not you get in. So where you can do that cost savings, I definitely recommend doing that. The application is pretty straightforward. It usually takes about 20 or 30 minutes, give or take. Out of that 20 or 30 minutes, usually about 15 of them are spent on your personal statement. So really briefly, the personal statement is just asking you to share why you want to come to Messiah. I always tell students, if you have a little bit of a writer's block or need a little bit of inspiration, if you start with that tagline that I mentioned all the way at the beginning, sharpening intellect, deepening Christian faith, and inspiring action. You could do 2 or 3 sentences on each of those, and you'd have a great little paragraph to be able to submit. Once you submit the application, you get to choose if you want to apply test optional or a test submitter. If you apply test optional, the only programs and things you're not able to take advantage of at this point is our nursing program, our engineering program, our accelerated OT program, our early assurance physical therapy program, and the honors program and scholarship. Other than that, everything, all the scholarships, all our other majors are totally test optional. We are, of course, always looking at engineering, nursing, some of those other programs if we can be a little bit more flexible with it. But at this point, if those are ones you're thinking about, you do need to submit test scores. Otherwise, I definitely encourage everyone to be able to apply test optional. You're really not missing out on that much at all. And I know it can really be a relief in the senior year. It's been a really tough year trying to take tests. Once you decide how you want to test or not, we of course also need your high school transcript. I do want to take 1 second to talk about something called the CLT, or the Classical Learning Test. It is very similar to the SAT or ACT. If you know the differences between those, you might be able to figure out the difference between the CLT, but typically students who test on the CLT get a very similar score to what they would have gotten on the SAT or ACT. Messiah has been accepting this test for a few years now. It's not new. A lot of Christian schools will accept it because we have a lot of students who are coming from classical backgrounds, whether they were homeschooled or if they were in private school. It was a test that they were taking, so we became really familiar with it. And so if you want to be able to do, say, honors or engineering or nursing and haven't been able to test, the CLT is actually an online test that you're able to take at home. So you don't have to worry about, scheduling a date and will it be canceled and all of that. You also get a little bit of test anxiety relief because you can sit in your own space and be able to take that test. So if you want to check it out, it's cltexam.com. Once we have all of that, Messiah usually sends you an admissions decision within about 2 weeks. So it's a pretty fast turnaround. And then of course, we'll start talking about financial aid and scholarships and anything else that you'd want to know about. I should mention, of course, I am on campus. I don't have Messiah pictures that I need in my house. And so we are doing on-campus visits. So if you're interested in being able to come and actually check out campus for yourself, you'll get to have an hour meeting with an admissions counselor who can go over a little bit more in depth, everything that we kind of scooted past today. You'll get an hour campus tour with the current students, so you can ask them questions about their experience, what their student life is like before COVID, because that looks very different than now, and what they're even doing now. For any of you guys that are seniors, of course, we're hoping and praying, of course, that it's gone by next year and you can have a normal experience or a more traditional experience. But if not, you still want to be able to ask schools how they're handling it, so you know what kind of experience you might have for your first year or two of college. And then, of course, we always feed you because food is super important. Our food is super good. We want to prove it to you, and we do that by letting you eat on campus. Students also can meet with a professor. So I know I didn't spend a lot of time talking about every single major and what the distinctives are of those majors, but if you do come to campus, we can set you up with a meeting with a professor one-on-one to hear about that. I know some of you might be a little bit further away or not quite ready to visit campus, and that's totally fine. We do have a lot of virtual options as well. Actually, next Monday, October 12th, we do have a virtual open house that you can check out. It's a couple different sessions every hour, so you can join us for just an hour if you want to hear about one thing, or you can spend the whole day with us and hear from different panels and different departments and that sort of thing. But since we are virtual, I'm going to show you one more video just so you can get an idea of what campus looks like, and then I will get to your questions, so feel free to start sending those in. Share that one because it gives you kind of a campus beauty shot. We are definitely known for our really beautiful campus. It doesn't exactly show you how things are laid out, but gives you an idea of what the buildings look like and all the green space that we do have on campus. So if you are interested in getting more information about Messiah, of course, you can go to messiah.edu/counselor right there in the top right-hand corner. And you can put in where you live, and it will be able to tell you who your admissions counselor is. Just so they're the person you can follow up with, ask more questions, that sort of thing. Somebody asked for my contact information. Of course, it's just smark, so my first initial there, and then mark@messiah.edu. So if you have any questions, of course, you're more than welcome to send those to me, or I can get you connected with your specific counselor. I typically work with our homeschool and cyber school students, but all of the rest of our counselors are all divided up based on their geographical territory. It looks like that's the only question for now. I still have 15 minutes, so by all means, if there's more questions you want to ask, you can feel free to put them in the chat feature. Otherwise, I really appreciate you guys taking some time to learn more about Messiah University.
Hi, Shayna. I was wondering if, while we wait for a few questions, would you mind replaying that last video? The sound came through, but the video did not. And I'm sure our guests would love to see that.
Absolutely, no problem. Yeah, if anybody has any questions that's left, by all means, feel free to shoot those into me. Otherwise, that's all I have to share.
Great. Thank you so much, Shayna. If you want to take your slides down, I have one quick last screen to share with you all. I just want to thank you all for joining us today. When you close this window, there will be a link to a very quick 4-question survey. We'd appreciate any feedback you can provide. Also, this was just one of many sessions being hosted, so be sure to sign up for an additional session at PACAC.org. In about a week, you'll be able to see this session's recording, as well as all of the other sessions recordings at PACAC.org. Thanks so much and have a great day. Thanks so much, Shayna. Bye now.
Thank you.